So blessed with having all of you here.
January 29th. Appreciate you coming here. And
actually meeting with the Tsleil-Waututh First Nations Council right now. It was important for myself and for me as the representative of the City Council and the Mayor to come and take part in this remembering and this ongoing effort for us to be a better place for everyone. And so I'm here to read a proclamation, a day of remembrance and action on Islamophobia, whereas the City of Vancouver affirms that Islamophobia, like all other forms of racism, hate, xenophobia, and bigotry, has no place in Vancouver. And whereas the City of Vancouver lowered the flag in honor of the lives lost in January 29, 2017 in the Quebec Mosque shooting. And whereas the City of Vancouver hopes that all orders of government will designate January 29th as a day of remembrance and action on Islamophobia for future years. Now, therefore, I, Raymond Louis, on behalf of our Mayor Gregor Robertson, Mayor of the City of Vancouver, do hereby proclaim January 29th, 2018 as a day of remembrance and action on Islamophobia in the City of Vancouver.
thank you so much.
In the Saint-Foy neighborhood of the city of Quebec. This heinous act of violence claimed the lives of 6 men, wounded 19 individuals, and shook the nation. Today, I join the community of the Jamea Masjid, Vancouver, constituents of Vancouver Granville, in commemorating the 1-year anniversary of this tragic and unprecedented shooting. With all Canadians, we extend our thoughts and prayers to the families affected by this tragedy. The Quebec Mosque massacre was a terrible and grievous reminder of our need to remain vigilant about the dangers of Islamophobia and all forms of hatred and bigotry. We must continue to condemn all forms of discrimination and ensure that such an event can never happen again. Canada's commitment to diversity and inclusion remains unwavering. Muslim Canadians are an important part of our national fabric, and these senseless acts have no place in our communities, cities, or country. Canadian law enforcement agencies will always protect the rights of all Canadians and will continue to apprehend the perpetrators behind all acts of intolerance. Today and every day, we will remember the victims of this tragedy while reflecting on how we can collectively ensure that Canada remains a country that promotes diversity, peace, and inclusion, and where hate is not tolerated. Gilakasla, which means thank you. Jody Wilson-Raybould.
Oh, thank you very much.
On behalf of the NCCM, it's my honor and privilege to be here with you tonight to remember the tragic events that took place 1 year ago and shook all of us. I want to start by thanking all of you for joining us from the greater community of Vancouver, and to all of those who have been supporting the Muslim community in the past year through your messages, your emails, your wonderful cards, leaving flowers at mosques just like this. It has truly been an outpouring of support for the community. While 6 men were brutally murdered on that night 1 year ago, they were not the only victims. 19 others were injured, many gravely, and left behind were 6 widows and 17 orphans, all of whose lives will never be the same. So today is about remembering and honoring the victims and their families, and those injured and those who are still grieving. Today we are showing our solidarity with them. It is also important to recognize and acknowledge the context and background against which this terrible incident took place. Let's be clear. That horrific attack did not occur in a vacuum. We know that there has been a documented increase in Islamophobia in Canada, with Stats Canada noting a 253% increase in police-reported hate crimes against Muslims between 2012 and 2015. Furthermore, we also know from Stats Canada and Justice Canada that as much as 2/3 of hate crimes go unreported in this country. So these numbers that we see are only scratching the surface of what's actually happening on the ground. Just last month, an Angus Reid poll showed that 46% of Canadians believe that the presence of Islam in Canada is damaging to Canadian society. This poll and several others like it are showing similar results, should be a cause for concern and demonstrate that we have a lot of work to do. At times like these, we also remember, as a Muslim community, that we're not operating as an island, and that we are in this together with the larger community of Canadians across the country, and that we have to face the issue of Islamophobia and all other forms of hatred, including anti-Black racism, anti-Indigenous racism, anti-Semitism, and the rest together. When one community is targeted by hatred or bigotry, we are all targeted, and we're all certainly affected. Canadian Muslim communities on their own cannot tackle the phenomenon that is Islamophobia. And importantly, Islamophobia does not affect only Muslims. It also affects those who are perceived to be Muslims. Unfortunately, Canada experienced this terrible attack in Quebec, but a few years ago in the United States, a gunman walked into a Sikh Gurdwara, assuming that it was a Muslim place of worship, and gunned down and murdered several Sikhs in what was clearly an act of terrorism. So it's not just the Muslim community that faces these acts of intolerance and violence. So naturally, many of us are wondering, what can we do to help combat this issue? Well, first and foremost, by coming out tonight and showing your solidarity, you are a testament to your commitment to stand against Islamophobia and hate, and we hope you'll continue to show your support in the coming years. And secondly, the NCCM has called, with the support of over 75 Canadian Muslim groups, including the Pakistan Canada Association, the BC Muslim Association, to call on the federal government to designate January 29th as a national day, as just like the city of Vancouver has done this evening. Now, many people are confused, or they may have misinformation about what that means, but we're confident that as we work through this issue together as a community, and we talk to more and more Canadians and elected officials, that eventually that day will be designated by the federal government, inshallah, God willing. To conclude, while this heinous act brought devastation and pain to all of us, and shows how letting hatred and bigotry going unchecked can lead to tragedy, it also showed the best side of Canada and the best side of humanity through an outpouring of love, through rings of peace around mosques that we saw in the past 12 months, and through vigils like this and messages of support, and many other acts of kindness and solidarity. So on behalf of the NCCM and the greater Muslim community here in Vancouver, thank you for that support, and thank you for being here tonight.
Physical. Why isn't no one doing anything? Just everything happening way too quick. And he had his hand up, and he hit me across the face. And it wasn't until he hit me did one man push the guy away and backed up and stayed in front of me until the man got off the train. I called 911 right away, and they told me to get off at Yaletown Station. The gentleman also got off with me, the one who pushed the man away. His name is Jake Taylor, and he stayed with me. He waited until paramedics came, until the police came. He was there, and he didn't need to do what he did. He could have easily pushed the guy away and stayed on the train to go back home. He was just as tired as I was, but he didn't. He wanted to be there, he wanted to support me, he knew I was in distress. And for me, after that happened, I wanted to share my story. It was hard. The night I came home, how are you supposed to explain that to your parents? How are you supposed to explain to your parents who left their whole country to bring you a safer country here? My parents came from a war-torn country, Iraq. You have to understand the history for that, to see the beauty, to see the city that used to be called the City of Gold, to be considered a place full of rubble and dead bodies, and that's all it was. And to move us here, and to give us a life here, and to have that happen, I hope that never happens to someone, to have to phone your parents in the middle of the night and call your dad and say, hey, so I've just been attacked on the SkyTrain, can you come pick me up? And I couldn't even tell my mom. How are you supposed to tell your mother that? She's the one who tells you every single day, Noor, protect yourself. I did 9 years of judo growing up. My dad wanted to be the strongest woman out there. And I remember being able to kick every guy's butt, flip him easy. I was never able to beat the girls, it was just the guys. And it was crazy. And I always thought myself that I was tough and I was strong and I was everything. But in that moment, you'll never forget it because it happens quick. I was raised to be aware, to be cautious of your environment, of people, that the world is not always a beautiful place. But when it actually happens, you're taken back by it. Because you hear about it, you see it on the news, and then you think to yourself, can't believe this actually happens. And then it happens to you. I've been fighting this journey long before the attack happened to me. I've been trying to speak up about racism and hate crimes long before the incident happened to me. And you know what? In a way, I don't regret it happening to me because here I am. And the opportunities that I have been given in life is amazing. And unfortunately, not everyone gets those opportunities. The only reason why I'm here today and people, I hope that respect me is because I'm not dead. My life wasn't taken away. He did what he did to me because he thought he was doing the right thing. He thought he was getting rid of the hate, the violence, a terrorist. But he completely was misinformed. I'm nothing more than any of us here. Maybe in some ways I can be better, and maybe you guys are better in other ways. And it was unfortunate, and that's where it comes from. It's the lack of knowledge that we have within our community. It's the information that we get. Western media portrays us all 1.7 billion and more of us on the same brush, and yet we're all different. I wish we could all be alike, but what's the point of life then if we're all the same? If we all follow the same, if we do the same, it's more better for us to be different. Because that gives you an opportunity to wake up and meet someone new every single day of your life. And to see their smile, see what makes them happy, see what, hurts them, understand. That's how humanity works. As much as I wish that we could all be one kind, or someone wishes that we can get rid of all Muslims, or we can get rid of all Jews, or we can... It's a label. Yes, I'm a Muslim, but when I meet someone, I don't say, hi, my name is Noor, I'm a Muslim. I say, hi, my name is Noor, I'm 18 and I'm a poet. I'm an activist. You want to grab some coffee? Ask me anything. No, this is not the bruise that the man gave me on the attack. This is actually a birthmark. People question, is that what he did to you? No, it's a birthmark and I'm really happy and I'm proud of it. And I think that's just what we really need. We need to have that communication and support, and it really starts by us and ourselves. We check ourselves once in a while in the mirror and just think to ourselves, what did I do today to make someone happy? And what did I do today to make myself happy? Sometimes you catch yourself thinking things maybe we should about someone. You get mad, you're crossing the street and someone accidentally hits the brake and is about to hit you and you want to say something really mad like, oh, but you have to catch yourself at those moments. You can't base everyone off of a few people. And I feel like it's an important role for me to be here today because I want to be that voice for those that were silenced, for those that unfortunately their lives were stolen, they were taken away far quicker than they should have. And that's why I'm here, and that's why I'll continue to speak up. And I hope that we can speak up as well. And to be able to, when we see something, to say something, and to continue to support one another. Just let down our walls and our boundaries and whatever beliefs we think is right and wrong, just put it aside for a moment and just realize we're stuck here together. Instead of creating chaos and fire and, and getting on everyone's nerves, just settle down for a little bit and try to listen. And that's what it is, it's listening. And I hope we can all do that. Thank you.
There's a lot of emails that go around talking about what Muslims believe in, and much of it is inaccurate. And it's being circulated by various hate groups. Just a few of them. There's some sort of conspiracy theory of Muslims wanting to implement Sharia law in Canada is one of the most popular emails that are going out. Another one is Muslims enforce female genital mutilation, which is categorically false. Nothing in Islam, and many Muslim women here can attest to that this has nothing to do with Islam. And so many of these misgivings and misunderstandings, and obviously we have extremist groups like ISIS that people have a view that somehow what these radical extremists are doing somehow represents Islam, which is categorically false. So most of you, including myself, every day I usually pick up my phone and I look at the news, what's happening. And more often than not, unfortunately, there's some tragic event that happens, and people that are Muslims have done some sort of attack somewhere. And so I would feel terrible, as many of us would, and I would feel that I know Islam, and I'm born here in Canada. Haroon is my cousin. His father is the founder, one of the founders of this mosque, and his father's father came in 1904. So our family's been here for three generations. We are Canadian. We love our country. We helped build the country. Our forefathers helped build the country. And we love the country. We don't want any harm to come to the country or the people in the country. We are Muslims, but we respect everybody else's beliefs and faith and whatever their way of life is. And so when I was growing up in the 80s, there was all this negativity and propaganda about Russia. And I used to believe it. I used to think that, wow, the Russians are terrible. The Russians are horrible. There's nuclear winter and they hate us and all that sort of thing. I used to believe all that. And now, whatever, 20, 30 years later, when that same media is kind of saying all these very negative things about Islam and Muslims, and I was like, just like I believed all those negative things about the Russians in the 80s, I'm very certain there are people who are not Muslims that have never interacted with Muslims, by and large, could start having negative feelings about Islam, because if it's saying that in the newspapers, on television, on radio, in the talking space of people, like even doctors, lawyers, educated people speaking in such a negative way about Islam, there is an element of society that will just say, well, then it must be true. So I've been to Russia. I was there 3-4 years ago for a conference, and I got to spend 2 weeks there. And what a great people, fantastic people. I never felt any of them had any hatred towards the West or anything like that. And so, similarly with Islam Unraveled, we started an outreach, which happened actually inspired by people coming to our mosque. After these tragic shootings occurred, within a day, there were people, 1,000 people that came out in front of our mosque with candles, with flowers, with cards. We were like, wow, they're coming to our mosque and to give us condolences. I was moved. I was moved. I was touched. I was like, people are taking, it was cold. The snow was coming down, and yet people had come. Some people had come for driving an hour, 2 hours, just to come to show that they cared. And I was just, and all of our community, we were just heartened by this. So we thought, well, if people are willing to come to us, shouldn't we be willing to come to them? So we kind of strategized. There were Christian groups that came, there were Sikh groups that came, there were Jewish groups that came. And so those that we knew, we said, hey, we're willing to come to your temple, your synagogue, your church, as observers and friends and neighbors. And if any people have any questions of us after the program, after the service, we're happy to answer any questions, any misconceptions and what have you. And so we started doing that. And many people, even though there are churches very close by.
So, thank you again. I was saying that this stage is not for me, it's for all the people who have fallen into intolerance. They are for Tanu, who felt that day in Quebec and left behind him his wife and his 2 little sons. It is for Ijatu, his wife, a strong woman who stands up for her sons. It's for my aunt, his mother, who came to see him that day just before he got killed, the same day, when a few days after she arrived. At least she saw her baby one more time. She kissed him and might have told him how proud she is. Tano, he was my cousin. He came to Canada 8 years ago. He studied accounting and was working as accountant. He was the kind of person that you meet in the morning and by the end of the day you became friendly. The kind of person who leaves his cases and help you on yours. He always put the other first. At his workplace, they have organized a memorial and named a room after him. They want people to remember the great human being that he was. I spoke to his wife today, It's not easy for her, but she's up. She stands for her little sons. She told me that the mobilization of the authorities of the Canadian, no matter where they came from, is a big psychological support for her. She wants to thank each and everyone who manifested compassion, love to the victims whose prayers are just through their thoughts. My family prayers are with all the victims and injured who are currently fighting with their injuries and traumatism. What happened is the result of ignorance, judging through the only one angle that other people see Islam, judging through the misrepresentation of this religion. I just want to say to these people, come, get to know us, get to know people. You will see wisdom, love, compassion, and not these things that we as Muslims discover like you on the TV. We are in a multicultural country, a multicultural world. We might have some differences, but we have so many in common. So let's focus on this to build a better world, a better place to live. I will conclude with this quote from Harry Nguyen, who was a Catholic priest that represents really what I have learned from my religion. It said, did I offer peace today? Did I bring smile to someone's face today? Did I say words of healing today? Did I let go my anger and resentment? Did I forgive? Did I love today? These are the real questions. I must trust that the little bit of love that I sow now will bear many fruits here in this world and the life to come. Thank you very much for being here.
Hi, very much. We were in the company of Minister Baines in the morning, along with Parliamentary Secretary, Mr. Callon, and they invited us to commemorate this day, and I'm here to deliver the message from our Premier John Hogan of BC Central Command, and the message is, 1 year ago, Canadians joined together in shock and horror in the aftermath of an attack that claimed the lives of 6 men at Quebec City Mosque and injured many others. We honor the memories of those who were cruelly taken from their friends, their families, and their communities in this act of terror. Ibrahima Bari, Mamadou Tanu Bari, Khalid Balkami, Abdul Karim Hassani, Azadine Sufyan, and Abu Bakr Thabiti. These men were murdered because they were Muslim. This attack was the first time in Canadian history people who were gathered in a place of worship were targeted with violence. We must make sure it is the last. We stand with the Muslim community and every British Columbian attending vigils, sending prayers and taking action to fight hate, bigotry, and Islamophobia. Together we will build a stronger province and stronger communities, united in love and compassion, not divided by hatred and fear. Signed, Honorable John Horgan, Premier of British Columbia, January 29, 2018. Thank you for being here, everyone.
We are also marking the 20th anniversary of the murder of Nirmal Singh Gill here in Surrey. So doesn't this happen in Quebec? It happened here in Surrey, that 5 white supremacist skinheads went into the Gurudwara in Surrey, the Guru Nanak Gurudwara, and tried to kill everybody inside. And the caretaker, Shahid Nirmal Singh Gill, stopped them and he paid with his own life. He became Shahid. He died 20 years ago. And it can happen anytime. We are not safe praying in our own masjid anymore. And I'm so happy that our Attorney General has sent representatives and City Council and government and so on, that we need to start doing something about this. We've called for marking today.
Knowing how to trust each other. It's knowing how to break bread with each other. It's knowing how to take the time to say, hey, there's not much difference between us. We are human beings. We're carbon, mostly water. We have emotions. We have dreams. We have things that we'd like to do in life. And for people whose lives were truly cut short, it hurts us. It hurts us all. It doesn't matter who you are. So that night, that night something. And so I arrived here after an event celebrating 50 years of BC Muslim Association, which came out of this mosque, and it was a night of celebration. And then that news came and we were all deflated. And I got a call from my nephew, Abu Bakr Khan. This PK was Noor. Noor means light. And I see light in each and every one of your faces. And that gladdens my heart, it emboldens my spirit, and it gives me hope that we together can accomplish anything. And if we can accomplish the elimination of discrimination, if we can eliminate fear of the other, and know that we're all just together in this thing called life. So I thank you all. Now, terrible things happened. 6 people lost their lives, and I think you'd read the names, Shokit, and they were sons, they were brothers, they were fathers, they were husbands. Many children lost their fathers, the wives lost their husbands, and it's difficult to have that ripped away from you. It's a 1-year anniversary. It's a 15-year anniversary for me and all of you standing here, sitting with us today, as brothers and as sisters, so that we can carry on that mission that God has bestowed on us. Live this life. This life is a test. What are you doing in this life? So let's all give that some thought, and let's all make a prayer. Now, I'm a Muslim. You may be a Christian. You may be a Jew. You may be a Sikh. You may be Buddhist. You may be Hindu. You may be agnostic. You may be an atheist. But here we are together as human beings. So I'd ask they have a moment of silence. So in this moment of silence, I'd like you to say in your own way, in your own language, in your own spiritual tradition, to make a prayer for those people whose lives were lost, but whose lives that carry on, keep going forward. So please, let's take a moment.
Can I just say one thing?
Of course, never underestimate what a small group of people can do. It's really what's made life in society happen. Small groups of people that can encourage larger groups of people. And in doing so, we make a society that we can all live in peace, in harmony, and to understand each other. We wish you all the best of health, best of happiness. This is a new year. And this is a year that we can all encourage each other to be the very best that we can do. And I wish that for each and every one of you and all of your families. So I thank you on behalf of Jamea Masjid, Vancouver, our greater Muslim community. As a father, I see my daughter Hamna and my son Asad, and here, and I see Shokit with his son, and I see all of you with your families, with your significant other. And you took your time to be here today. It means the world to me, and so I thank you. So again, come on. All right, there you go.
I've really benefited from that. You know, the hospitality that I've enjoyed and been offered. How much tea and coffee, you know, rose juice I was offered while other people were fasting, but they knew that I wasn't. So they said, you know, have this, it's high in iron. Iftar, the breaking of the fast, dinners that I've been invited to and tried really amazing dishes. And I think one of the first kind of societies and environments where I wasn't judged based on how I looked, but like the strength of my character or how I treated people. Yeah, so being back in Canada, you know, I've really benefited from the exposure to Islam and lots of Muslim neighbors, but I know that a lot of people haven't. But I think a lot of people are looking for that connection, actually. There is like kind of an outpouring and an interest. Sounds like you're doing really amazing work just to bridging that. And so actually 2 years ago when there was such a big influx of Syrian refugees, I was kind of like, what can we do? Because there is this outpouring and desire for solidarity. And so I was like, oh, maybe we can do a language exchange program for English and Arabic for people to learn and kind of have solidarity. And it was actually Islamic Center, the Ajiyal Center downtown, that was the first space to actually offer and say, oh yeah, you can do that here free of charge, and offered a space and like let that program start. So I'm happy to say that the language exchange program has grown, and yeah, so if you ever want to learn a language with a partner, Language Partners BC is now the organization, and we continue to partner with mosques. Not this one yet, maybe.
You're coming. Consider it done.
But also
I know somebody.
Yeah, but also Masjid Omar on 10th Avenue near Commercial. Yeah, and so it's really beautiful to continue to see people making more connections and enjoying solidarity and having this feeling like we can be good.
Involved in this, took part in this, but last year, after this day, I gathered a number of people from the Jewish community to say, what could we do, similar to others, and we gathered together and wrote a letter to our own community and to the Muslim community that was published in the Miracle, and what's your other paper? Al-Amin.
That's the Al-Amin right there.
Just standing in solidarity and expressing our condolences, and also calling on our own community to ask one another what we can do and how we can show support. And that immediately got hundreds of signatures and felt like just a nice way to stand together in this moment. So it felt really nice to come together this morning, and I was just writing the Premier to let him know all about it. And I don't know if Haroon shared, but we changed the lights of the legislature today to green and white to reflect the importance of commemorating this day. And I know that Premier Horgan would have been here if he could have been. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. For peace. The 65,000, the 100,000 people. We all produced that. That's who we really are. But sometimes we forget that. We get so busy with our lives and the games we're playing. And we need to get back to what our brothers and sisters are talking about here. A miracle is where love replaces where there was once anger. And may we learn to talk to each other when we have differences without cruelty. Thank you so much. And my daughter, who couldn't attend, is at home praying for the people and their families who were touched by the horror that happened. And may we put out our life energy and touch those same people with the blessings we feel tonight. Thank you.
Her whole family had to leave Romania because of obviously what was happening. I have a British spy in my family, and I don't quite know how he's related to me, but he was warning them. He was saying, get out, because Hitler is going to follow through with what he's saying. I can't imagine the feeling of leaving your country out of fear, of just having to leave everything behind, the streets that you know. And so she went to live in Palestine. Then after a while, they moved to live in Australia. And in Australia, she met and fell in love with another immigrant who moved to Australia after the war. And he was a German man, and he was in the Hitler Youth. And it kind of cements this idea in my mind that love is just so much more long-lasting, so much more powerful than hate. That hate can go away. Hate can always go away eventually. But because of their love, because they were able to, especially my grandfather, able to see what he was doing, what he was taught at school was wrong, that they had my mother, and that my mother eventually had me and my sister. And because of the 50th anniversary recently, I've been thinking a lot about that, just about the strength that just being able to move on and how it's so guided with love. And I'm so thankful about that. I never got to meet my grandfather. He died when my mother was very young. And my grandmother died when I was very young, so everything I was taught about the story was from my mother. And I wish I could just tell them, I wish I could hear the story from their point of view, but I wish I could just say that I'm so thankful about what they accomplished together. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you.